So this was an interesting episode. Um, so bit of history with Dexter and the Tooth Fairy. Still can't get over that name, the Tooth Fairy. Dude hunted down prostitutes, killed them, and stole their teeth, their incisive whatevers, and they dubbed him the Tooth Fairy. I mean, it's like, you know they want to keep this kind of information away from kids and just, out of the general public's reach, and then they go ahead and say, what would be a great name for a guy who steals teeth? The Tooth Fairy. Fucking nailed it, Jim. Fucking nailed it. But, yeah, the 8-year-old Dex, or I think high school Dex, had a book of serial killers that he researched and just fanboyed over, fangirled over. It's Dexter. It's not exactly. It's not weird for Dexter, but it is weird in general. But again, even Harry said it himself. Every kid needed a hobby. Usually teenage boys go for cars or girls or you said, baseball players, sports players of some kind, but not Dexter. No, he's all about researching the people who spend day and night hunting blood and avoiding the law, or even getting caught by the law in the end. But yeah, that was an interesting kind of find, an interesting revelation from his past. But yeah, I think with this one, there was an interesting kind of exploration of, in thematically speaking, there was an interesting kind of exploration of obviously Dexter's not going to be young and strong and fit and healthy forever. There's going to come a time where he's going to go old and grey, and he's going to start needing a cane or a wheelchair, or he's going to start getting memory loss or hearing loss or some kind of loss. And when that day comes, chances are Harrison's going to be all grown up, and potentially, if all goes according to plan, or if all goes according to Dexter's plan, potentially he's going to be completely oblivious to the fact that his dad used to be a serial killer that never got caught, called the Bay Harbor Butcher. But I think I think it's up until now, even, it's not really something that's crossed my mind. The show's done such a good job of showing how Dexter has been so deeply affected by the traumas of his youth that you can't really see him in any other light. You know it's going to happen, but you can't really imagine him growing old and grey and wrinkly and frail and all that stuff. You can't see him becoming a senior citizen, if that makes sense. So, for them to bring that up with this one, with Walter Kenny, the Tooth Fairy, someone who, after 10 years of, just not doing any tooth fairying or any kind of teeth, thieving, he finally tracked down another prostitute and took the time in his frail old age to actually kill her and take another tooth for his trophy box. And I think even what he was saying to Dexter in the end, you think it's always going to be this way, one day you're going to be like this as well, and what you're going to have to show for it, just a collection of your own trophies and stuff like that. And I think even when he mentioned the son, I wish I could see my son, my son's reaction to me dying like this, knowing that this is what I am. You could see that took a hit on Dexter, because he doesn't want to die before Harrison gets a chance to hit adulthood and hit his own life. But he also, as he grew, when he grows up, he never wants Harrison to find out about this, or even if he does, on the off chance that he does, he wants Harrison to find out on his own terms, and in a way that he's actually old enough to understand what Dexter was and why he did what he did, and actually he wants Harrison to have the childhood that he never did, because Dexter's childhood is the whole reason he's like this. So he wants Harrison to kind of avoid all of that as a whole, and then once he reaches that age, if he needs to find out, or if he happens to find out, make it in the right way at the right time as well. So yeah, and I think that was a really good kill at the end as well, in the sense, you're not going to die as the Tooth Fairy, you're just going to die as some frail old man who had a heart attack, dying as who he was. would just be kind of glorifying his own life and glorifying what he did and giving him what he wanted, like, you know, him knowing, like with Walter, knowing that he spent a lifetime doing all of this, he achieved all of this, and now he's dying because of that. But no, he's dying because of that, obviously, but he's not dying with that in mind, you know, like you know, like, should they find his body? I think he might have sent it back to, like, he might have, like, dumped his body back in his room, because he did say, like, you know, now, I think he said, like, now the residential place has, like, another room free or something, and it only makes sense because then that would mean that, you know, like, that would then mean that when the body's found, like, there won't be any pieces of evidence lying around that could be traced to murder. Like, if he's stabbed, then it can be like, oh, like, someone broke into his room and stabbed him in the middle of the night or something like that, like it was a murder. But with this, it's like strangulation, I think, well, not strangulation, he just, like, smothered him with a pillow, so, like, suffocation. I don't really think there are any obvious signs for that, because that's, like, to the face mainly, so you might get some, like, wrinkling or, like, some, like the skin being flattened out, but besides from that, like, a heart attack would be the most probable cause, and they likely would never think twice. And again, dying as a frail old man, as opposed to it being like, oh, you're, like, I'm a killer who kills other killers, so I'm gonna kill you now. But yeah, I think that was a really interesting kind of concept they explored, like old age, and, like, what what Dexter's actually living with, and what he's achieved in his lifetime, and what he wants to be able to achieve. And, you know, like, the fact that, you know, he's come this far, he's lost so much, but he's gained so much as well. And, you know, like, by the end of it, like, what is his legacy? Like, what's he gonna pass on to Harrison? Like, he doesn't want it to be his blood slide box. He doesn't want Harrison to carry on in his footsteps and become the Bay Harbor Butcher 2.0 or anything like that. He wants Harrison to live his own life, like, free of any murder or any kind of trauma or trouble or anything like that. But what does he actually have that he can pass on to Harrison that isn't? Because, like, you know, his job, like, I think whether or not Harrison works in the Miami PD, that's his own choice. If he grows up and he admires his dad's forensics career that much, then more power to him. If he wants to move into forensics, then that's fine. But, you know, besides from that, like, what is he actually leaving behind for him? Like, what kind of legacy, what kind of footprint in Harrison's life has he actually created? You know, especially at the ending scene, like, when he was putting the blood slides into the box and then they all just fell apart and one of them even snapped in half. Like, you know, there's no order to his life anymore. He doesn't know what to do now that he knows now that he has some idea of what's ahead of him. Like, you know, there's just he has even less of a vision than before. Like, he literally has no idea what kind of future is ahead of him, what he's even built for himself. Like, there's no order to his blood slides. You know, like, literally looking at them from an outsider's perspective, it would literally just look like little blood spots in between two sheets of glass taped together and then put inside a box. Like, that's literally all it is. But for him, like, we know Dexter, we know who he is, we know what he's been through, what this means to him, but it's made only so that it's enough for him to understand. But even now, with everything falling apart and everything's kind of, like, life's true nature being unveiled to him, it's like, this is not what he was taught. Like Harry never taught him how to grow old, like what growing old was, what, like, life really was. Like, all Harry taught him, all the code really is how to control his bloodlust and how not to get caught while doing so. It's not something like, you know, oh, you're going to reach an age where you're going to want to think about your future. Like, obviously, I mean, he must have had the career talk with him, because then Dexter went into forensics at the Miami PD and all that stuff, but he never really had the talk of, like, you know, actually growing old and, you know, like, living that kind of gracious life, because he never thought Dexter could have it. He never thought he could, and now Dexter has to and now Dexter has to receive it from a total dick swab who died on Dexter's table. So yeah, but that scene as well, like, him just kind of breaking down, just not knowing what to do, not knowing, like, what these, like, not even knowing what these trophies mean anymore, because again, he doesn't want Harrison to have them. So then once he's gone, he's probably just gonna, like, leave them somewhere and they're just gonna end up collecting dust. No one's gonna know who he was, no one's gonna know what he was. His blood slides are pretty much the prime example of who he is and what he does and what he's been doing and what his life's work really means, and yet he's the only one who's allowed to know about it, because anyone else who peeks behind the mask, anyone who knows who he really is, they either die or they leave. And he definitely doesn't want to risk that on anyone like Deborah or Harrison or any family like that. But once he's gone, the blood-slides have no meaning because no one else knows about them, no one else knows how to interpret them unless they actually look back in the criminal records and whatnot. He's probably just going to leave them in like another safe somewhere, or like in another part of the world, and they're just going to end up collecting dust because they used to belong to the Bay Harbor Butcher. And I think that kind of stuff, thinking about that kind of stuff, really it's just like, it's sad, but at the same time it's really interesting to think about as well. Like thinking about what Dexter might be leaving behind, but then at the same time he's not really leaving anything behind, because the only thing he has to leave behind is just something that's not really right at all to leave behind. But yeah, that was a very, very nice parallel they explored with Walter Kenny. Can't believe dude actually sits in his storage unit for 2 hours just getting drunk and jacking off. Just wow, senior citizenship looks very nice. What else? Deborah. I think that's not, again, like, I think this one makes a lot more sense, and this is something, if you actually think about it, actually makes more sense, and you actually do see coming, like Deborah's new career and her new job. Like, it's her first day as the boss, and I think because she was so giddy, because she knows how important this role was, I think that's why she actually kind of partially assumed it would be easy and that she'd actually like gain respect from her employees, like from the people working below her, from the first day onwards. But now she actually realizes, like, I think is she younger than Maria when she started being lieutenant? Because I think Maria's been at this job for like a decade or so. I feel bad saying that, because then that then means that I'm assuming I know how old she is, which I'm not, and I don't. But I feel like Deborah might have been younger than Maria when she started using that, when she started being the lieutenant. So I think in that sense, Maria is kind of warning her to not be so naive about the job, and to understand that, like, this job, it's a very, very good job, a very, very important job, but it's also one that's going to test you a lot. Like, the people and the responsibilities involved are going to test you a lot, and especially since Deb's so young, it's like, especially with Mike Anderson at the end, like him just like using jet lag as an excuse to kind of pass off the chances of Deb being lieutenant, because she doesn't really look presented as a lieutenant. Like, as I think Maria, we've always seen her wearing like a really kind of formal dress or like a suit or something, and always looking professional for the job. Whereas with Deborah, like, dressing up as a detective, it's just like a shirt and a pantsuit and maybe a belt, and that's pretty much it. So she's still holding on to that kind of detective mantle, and even like mentally as well, like she still remembers how good of a detective she was, and how good she was at her job, and how much she enjoyed that. And now being lieutenant, it's like, she doesn't go out into the field as much. She's working a lot more in like a closed off environment. So mentally and physically, it's a very different kind of change of pace, and a different like change of like environment for her that she's still getting used to. But I think I like that she did, like with Mike Anderson and with LaGuerta, she did actually step up to her role and be like, no, I am the lieutenant, this is the decision I'm making, and find a way to be okay with it, because like I'm the one making the important roll calls. It's up to me to make sure things go right at the end of the day. And I think internally she does kind of accept that kind of that kind of adultish responsibility as well. So she's kind of passing that message on to LaGuerta as well, like, if this fucks up, then I will deal with the consequences myself, but this is the decision I'm making, so respect it and authorize it. And same with Mike Anderson, like, she is the lieutenant here, so if he doesn't like it, then he can just piss off. But, if he's actually willing to work here and he wants to work here as a new detective, then, she's his boss and he's going to have to respect that. So I like that, I mean, it didn't seem rushed to me personally. I like that she actually did take the time to, like, express the fact that it's a stressful position for her, but at the same time, like, you know, actually step up to that authoritarian kind of figure, and that kind of authoritative kind of mantle, and to actually take control, take charge in spite of everyone around her kind of maybe judging her or doubting her ability, especially Quinn. Like, Quinn pissed me off this episode so fucking much. Like, all this because he thinks Deb chose a new job over a life with him, and I think he's still just not letting it get through his thick head that, you know, that they are two very different people right now, and they're at two very different end points in life. Like, he's ready to settle down, she's not, and for some reason he can't seem to respect that. And then he just moves on to depressing sex at the end of the episode, and also just kind of, you know, just sidelining Deb as a whole. So yeah, fucking hate Quinn this episode. Hope he matures somewhat by the next one. What else? Well, I think there wasn't a whole lot with Nathan the jogger and Travis. I think the old guy, the guy that Travis is working with, I think he made a good point. I think he made an interesting kind of point of saying, you know, oh, he's telling you what he wants to hear, but he's telling you what you want to hear because he thinks we're going to release him, but he doesn't know what we're actually going to do. So their plan all along was to kill him regardless of whether he apologized or not, but because, like, they're upholding their whole religious motives, they did want him to fully, like, passionately repent for his sins and beg forgiveness before they killed him. And, you know, I think they didn't really say what he was guilty of, because so far, like, all we've gotten is the whole 7 deadly sins thing, but they didn't really say which one, which sin Nathan was guilty of, because I can't remember what the fruit vendor was guilty of. Yeah, because I think I think all I remember from that one is the seven snakes being there, and then the ending speech being like, you know, like a 7-headed serpent rises from the sea of sand, and on each head is one of the 7 deadly sins. So that is obviously the religious kind of motive here, but I don't know. Like, I think they didn't really mention which sin Nathan was guilty of. But by the end they killed him, and that ending, just the horses going along, and like the dummies with some limbs dismembered and hanging on string, and then Nathan's severed head on one of the mannequins. Boy, that was creepy. And I assume that will be the next body found in the next episode. That will be a new one to add, and I think by the end of they're going to have a new case on their hands, like, you know, new bodies coming in with new cryptic messages and stuff. First the fruit vendor, and now this one. And now Nathan. So yeah, I mean, I assume that, I mean, so far the only pattern I'm picking up is the 7 deadly sins, but besides from that, I don't really know what else to think about it. So yeah, but that is pretty much all I have from this episode. So yeah, that was Dexter season 6 episode 3, titled Smokey and the Bandit. Great to see Sam back again. I think that was a bit more of a minor role, but it was great to see brother Sam back in this as well. And I think I'd like to think that there's actually a more positive and, like, talkative kind of communication between him and Dexter now that Dexter knows he's not really a bad guy. He's actually a changed man, and he's helping the other men achieve the same. But yeah, that is definitely it. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you guys enjoyed it, then salt and burn that like button. Comment on what you thought of the episode and what you think is coming up in the next episode. And yeah, that's it. So I will see you guys next time.